watched a little bit of your channel, by the way, just to get an idea. Scalarius, I watched the one that you did on Alan Smithy, the famous director. Yeah. Just clicked on whatever I could. I only had a minute today. Right? It's Mike Scolari. He's bright. He's cheery. He's full of energy. He's full of information. He knows fucking everything.
Today, I have the pleasure of talking to writer, producer, director, and good friend of mine, Rob Speranza, who directed a short film called Poor Tom. Poor Tom tells the story of Tom, a young bedridden child who takes up reading the Bible and spreads the word in the only way he knows how, by writing bits of scripture on small pieces of paper and sprinkling them out of his window like flower petals. It's a beautifully crafted short film that has been receiving a lot of attention at the festivals, and today we're talking to Rob about his film. Hey, I'm Mike. I studied film, I work in TV, and I love movies. Rob, I want to congratulate you on your film. Great job. Looks great. We'll talk about it in a minute, but since we're both in film, what I want to start with saying is, how's the film industry in the UK? Because here in the US, we're having a bit of a downturn. What can you report? How is it in the UK?
Yeah, definitely similar. I don't think that it's too much. It's not much better, but it's not that much worse either, from what I understand. Downturn, I think, is the right word, Mike. There's people I know, for example, who are freelance folks. People that work in different industry roles, whether they're editors or DIT or camera people. Camera people seem to be somewhat all right, but they're all struggling for work, looking for more. It's getting ever so slightly, steadily better as we go on. But people still are struggling. It's kind of like bit to bit, little by little.
I think it's when economic uncertainty happens, people pull back
Absolutely.
money. Yeah, they're like, I'm just going to hold my money. So for a minute, during the election here in the States, things slowed down in the fall because we didn't know who was going to be elected. Yep. And then once he got elected, let's see what happens. And so things picked up a little bit, January, February, then things got weird again. Yeah. So I think we're just hanging on there.
There were a whole bunch of articles. There were a whole bunch of articles written about that, Mike, about what was going on economically. People were keeping their cards close to their chest and their money closer because when they look at that and they said, "Oh, there's some economic uncertainty here. We're not sure what's going to happen with the stock market. We're not sure what's going to happen with investment and finance." People say, "Well, I'm not going to put my money into some independent that might tank, right? Because suddenly the economy might collapse and we'll find ourselves in a huge recession." So people don't take risks during those times, So I guess that was a big. I think that's also one of the reasons why this downturn is still taking a long time to recover. And believe it or not, people still quote COVID, as a reason for why these things are happening. I just think that's a little bit of a reach. I think we're out of COVID now, but it's funny how people still refer to that, and of course the strikes.
Yeah,
that happened,
the strikes were
which was
bad.
a bit of a double whammy.
Yeah.
And that the industry was dead here. I was lucky because I made Poor Tom during the strikes.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, which was a welcome breath of air for a lot of people.
Yeah, sure, they could work.
It's tough. It is tough right now, and maybe it's getting better, but it's very hard to predict.
Well, this is why I was so glad to see that you you wrote and produced and directed the short film, Poor Tom. And I think now is the time when things do take a slowdown. It's the time we should turn on to our own projects. I mean, we're working professionals. Now's a great time to look at your own projects and say, I'm going to get something off the ground. Tell us about Poor Tom. It was an existing story, right? What made you want to make this one?
Yeah, it was an illustrated booklet that I was sent from a couple of people who I had made some films with before. They're called Jane and Jonathan Redden. Just a couple, really, that had some vested interest in religiously themed stories. And there was this series of illustrated booklets, apparently, that existed in the early 40s. The one that they sent me was set in 1920. It was about this, poor boy in London in England. And I thought, I could do things with this, actually. And even though the illustrated booklet was very gospel heavy, and believe me, when you read it, it even starts getting slightly dogmatic, I thought it was getting a little bit on the heavy side. But I kind of scaled a little bit of that back. I wrote it, but I adapted it, I should say, is probably a better phrase for it. Got the rights to use it, which I had to track down from finally a company that now owns them in Florida. And it was interesting. It was just an interesting process. And why I wanted to do it, I guess immediately it occurred to me that this would be really, really effective if it was a bit more Dickensian. I started going back to my favorite depictions of Ebenezer Scrooge by people like Alistair Sim and even the Muppets. I like the way the Muppet Christmas Carol looks visually, the costumes, the way they color the film. I like the way that looks with, and I just thought, actually that might be my biggest touchstone, the Muppet one, funnily enough, for how the sort of decor looks in Poor Tom and the costumes are like. So I wanted to make it because I thought, I think it's going to look great if we do it right and we find the locations. And if I get really good, especially children actors, young people actors on this, I can make the pathos, rise so steeply and, maybe get a few tears shed.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, there's no hiding it. It's a pretty religious film. I know you and I both, we grew up in religious households. I consider myself religious, but I've always had a problem with, sort of expressing that. I've always had a problem with, because I guess from New York, I'm sort of like, hey, mind your business. Hey, what you do, you know what I mean? So did you have any of those reservations about putting together a film that was so, like, that just wore it on its sleeve, that just put it right out there?
What's it to you? You know what? It's not so much. I mean, I know what you're talking about witnessing here, right? And when my parents were born again Christian, right, and sometimes they would get a little bit heavy-handed with that. I have to say sometimes, but that's not really what we're trying to do with the film. That's not what I was intending to do with the film. To say like, oh, you should do this. This is how you should live. This is what you should do. I think it was more about the fact that this is a story about a very humble young boy who doesn't have the use of his legs. He's trapped in this tenement flat in London. He finds the Bible. It inspires him, just himself. And he says, it's no good use keeping this to myself. That's his thought. And he doesn't necessarily want to force it on other people. But what he wants to do is just say, you know what, I just want to share this. And the only way I know how, because I can't actually physically talk to people about it in the street, at church, wherever I go, he just has this one limited ability to throw notes out of his window. So I guess in that way, I got inspired by it to kind of do it in that same kind of subtle way, a way that's quiet and it's a short film. Let's see what it does out there. And that's why I sent it to some, sort of somewhat mainstream festivals, as well as festivals that had, religious themes at their core.
Just staying on that thought for a second, because I know I love art because everyone takes their own message from it, right? And I've started this YouTube channel probably 7-8 months ago, and I feel a little bit like Poor Tom. I'm putting out these little tidbits of film bits of knowledge that I have, or a film review here, or a thought there, and I'm hoping that somebody out in the interwebs will pick up on it, and maybe they'll like it, and maybe they'll come back, and maybe they'll subscribe. And so there's a lot of interesting thought there of like sort of like the if you build it, they will come sort of mentality. And I think you're right. It transcended strictly religion for me into this. You have to believe in something, and if you believe in it full-heartedly, you will infect other people with those thoughts. So I thought it was a beautiful message. I thought it was really nice.
Very kind of you to say, Mike. Thank you, and I hope people kind of pick up on your messages too, of which there are many.
Well, I mean, you and I have the gospel of film to pray by. Yeah. So, I wanted to talk. I want to talk a little bit about your shooting and framing. We can talk. It reminded me of a Rembrandt painting. It was really beautifully lit. It was beautifully framed. And I wanted to talk to you about color and how intentional was the color in there, because it was so beautiful. How much did you guys think about color when you put this together?
We thought about it a lot. I mean, that's the thing. I'm glad that you picked up on it and mentioned it this way, because what we were saying about it, myself and Jordan Carroll, the DOP, and our production design team, art department, the lighting folks, everyone, we wanted to create something that had reminiscence of paintings like The Girl with the Pearl Earring, mentioning Rembrandt. That's portraiture. So talking about portraiture, making it comparisons to portraiture is a great, it's brilliant that you've picked that up, that you feel that way, that you've come back with it, And the colors, we shot it at a really, really massive stately home called Wentworth Woodhouse, which actually is only about 25 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. I mean, you're over there in New York, and I'm in Sheffield, in England, in Yorkshire, and you can make the argument to say, well, you throw a rock in this in this country, he hit a stately home. Now, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but I do have a pretty good throwing arm. We used to play ball, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And the thing is, right, when it comes to stately homes and stuff, you can get these ones, you think of them, these, beautiful, ornate ballrooms with chandeliers the size of a small city. These things are just incredible. But the other thing about stately homes is that oftentimes they're so massive that they're too expensive to still maintain, completely. And even the most fancy of them still have rooms that are fallen into disrepair, that aren't exactly wonderful, that have been played with a little bit, and you could actually maybe even paint and decorate. So Wentworth Woodhouse is so massive, there's a whole wing of it that is in disrepair. Like the third floor, there's bits of it that are falling apart. The floorboards are missing. They got to get taped off. You can't, if you walk in, you'll fall down to the beautiful ballrooms. It's scary, man. There's some really, there's some pretty, it's in disrepair. So we were told when we found a few of these rooms that were a little bit decrepit, hey, if you want to decorate this to your heart's content, paint it the way you want to, you could. I was like, okay, sounds good. So I had a blank canvas in one of these beautiful big old rooms in that stately home that we could paint different colors. And we transformed everything. So the colors you see in there, these muted grays, kind of mustardy yellows, colors that, and even like kind of almost like a reddish tinge to things here and there with the carpets and stuff. All that was crafted ourselves. We put that canvas together ourselves in a beautiful location. So I'm really grateful to the house, to Wentworth Woodhouse, by giving us that opportunity, because it has to be said, you don't often get a blank canvas in a place, like that. So yes.
Fantastic. It blows me away because I really thought the answer to that question would have been like, no, it's painted that way. We just walked in. But like, I'm so
we're handcuffed.
It did feel intentional, and I hope it comes across, and it looks beautiful. Let's talk tech for a second. What kind of camera did you shoot it on? Resolution? Anything like that? Can you give us any details?
So, there is an entire article by my DOP, Jordan Carroll, about the tech of this, because he really spent a long time, working with it, thinking about lenses, thinking about, light, thinking about what he was going to use in these different locations. We probably recce'd it together 3 times beforehand. We shot it on the Arri Alexa Mini, and we used, a series of lenses. I can't tell you all the details I was saying before, but there's, the bulk of the film, I remember him talking to me about this when we were prepping and doing our storyboards and shot lists and things like that. And basically, like the idea first was that, he loved the texture and he loved the idea that all of this was happening in the location that it was. But he was quite aware of the fact that when I had first put this together as a story and wrote it in the script, that all of it was set during the day. Because a lot of the things that Tom did was drop those notes out in the daytime, in the sunshine, and it's kind of it's got a sunny feel to it. But he's like, you know what, Rob? He's like, why don't we play a little bit with this? Because we don't come out of that room a lot where he's stuck. Because at the end of the day, he is stuck there, But here and there, we come out of it. We see, Mr. Buxton's house. We see a few, notes blowing across the pavement. We have a few exterior. But end of the day, he's like, I think we should play with the texture here, play with lighting and put some stuff maybe in the evening or at night. Or there he is. Beautiful candlelight, things like that. We can take advantage of that sort of texture, that sort of lighting. What we can do with the decor and the color in the room. So that really was very much down to Jordan's ideas and what he brought to the table. And I was very, very happy to go with that and just not just have the same kind of look and lighting the whole time, so we can express time passing and different feelings on the camera.
And just for the people watching at home, we'll link that article to LinkedIn below in the comments.
Yeah.
So it'll be down there. You can check it all out. I have one tiny little criticism because I love you so much, Rob, and I know you so well. I feel like I can tell you one, and it's a beautiful thing. I kind of wanted more.
Here we go.
I started watching this little boy in the room, and I thought, wow, how lucky is he? He's in this like beautiful room, and he, I know he's homeless and all, and he's an orphan, but like he's taken care of, he's waited on. I mean, life isn't so bad for him, But I wanted to know a little of his story. I wanted to know a little bit. I didn't want my brain to go there, so I wanted you to tell me a little bit what of his background was, and we don't have to discuss it here, but like I think it's a good. And then, listen, I couched it as a criticism, but I do think it's a compliment that you've built a story so rich that we want more from it. I want to know more about what's happening. So I'm going to let you off the hook on that one. But it's a beautiful film.
No. I mean, if I can comment on that, that's great. I mean, like, end of the day, if you build a world and somebody likes the world and they want to know more, that's always a good thing. At the end of the day, short films, what you want to make them for is to get the attention of people so that they do want you to build on stories to show what else you could do, not only with an idea or with more budget or with more script or with more sort of source information, source kind of material, but you want people to want more. And no, I love that. I mean, at the end of the day, this was based on an illustrated booklet that didn't go beyond the story that I've told either. So I would have had to completely have made that up. Apparently, supposedly, it was based on a true story, but can't really find any of the true evidence for that, to be fair. I will say this, in addition, when I've done this before, I've made about 16 or 17 short films, only 2 of them as a director, but the other as a producer or a line producer. And like, for example, this is not the first time I've heard somebody say that. I made a film called Into the Woods many years ago by a director called Matt Tabu, who only lives about an hour away from me. He's of African descent, and he's a great storyteller. I made 3 short films with him, and Into the Woods was only a 6-minute thriller. And you say 6-minute thriller? How do you make a thriller in 6 minutes? But at the end of the day, it was about like, some English people that run into someone who doesn't speak English in the middle of the woods, and immediately they have a clash because they can't understand each other. And when it ends in quite a tragic way. It's on my YouTube. It's on, whatever. We can put a link to that too if we want. But what people said every time after it did its festival run, during its festival run, whatever, was, I want to know more. There was a bigger world there. What happened afterwards? What happened to the boy? Did those people die? All these different questions. And I felt like, there was a lot more to say in that story. And again, some of the best short films are the ones that have a, nice, straightforward beginning, middle, and end. And they tell a story in a contained way. But other ones are ones that leave you wanting to get a bigger story there. Let me find out more about that world. As long as you're not unsatisfied at the end of the film and feel like, oh, I don't know where that ended. Why did it just cut off like that?
That's a good point. That's great. Thank you for that. So let's talk about your previous work. You mentioned this is your second director. This is your second film you directed?
Poor Tom was the first film that had a beginning, middle, and end kind of thing that was my narrative beginning as a director, which is interesting because I'm about to turn 52. But I've been working in the film industry for 20, 22, 20, something like that years now, mostly producing and sometimes, just being a filmmaker, shooting, editing, the whole thing, mostly with corporate stuff, films for businesses, that kind of thing. But no, the same people who commissioned me to make Poor Tom have now asked me to do another one, which I literally just shot in Wales about 3 weeks ago. And so that's in the edit now, and that's called the Mary Jones and Her Bible. Not surprisingly, it's another religious story, and that is about a young girl called Mary Jones who, in the year 1800, bang on 1800, she walked barefoot across the mountains of Wales to buy a Bible written in Welsh when she found out that this reverend, who was quite well known in the area called Bala, North Wales, had one, and when she got there, he didn't have them and he was so sorry. But when he did get a few days later, he sold her a couple. I think he gave her 3 for the price of 1. And it was like this thing. Anyway, he was so impressed with her perseverance to get a Bible and her dedication that a few years later, they established the International Bible Society, which today is now the biggest Bible society in the whole world. They even fund films in the UK by people that adapt Bible stories. I actually got funding from one of those many years ago when I made a short film called Pulsar, which is a film based on the Jonah and the whale story. I line produced that for a director called Aurora Fernley. And the International Bible Society put those together. It's a competition called The Pitch, thepitch.com. And we instead of the sea, we put it on in space. Instead of a whale, it's an escape pod. It was pretty cool to do a sci-fi based on that idea. But yeah, it's amazing how much intersects really when it comes to the world of film and religion.
Is this next one going to be a feature, or are you going to be another short?
It's a short. It's a docudrama that's actually aimed at schools to begin with, and we're doing a Welsh version and an English version. So it'll probably be done in a few months from now. We're in the edit now, only about a third through the edit, so it's going to be a while. But I also directed a Hitman trailer, which is completely different than any of this religious stuff. That was probably my first gig, but it was based on the Hitman franchise, the games, the films, Agent 47, and it was an announcement trailer for the an AI version of the game. So that's it's called VR. Sorry, VR version of the game. Is it called Reloaded, I believe? And that's out there on YouTube now.
Can we talk about making films at our age? And I say our because I'm in the same boat as you, And I think a lot of people are in our place where we've worked professionally in the business for as long as we have. We've helped other people with their projects. I know I have a production company and I've done stuff. All the projects I've done for other people, I give to them. I don't own any of the IP. What about it is at our age? Did you finally say like, what advice would you give to someone our age who's looking to make their first film?
I'd say don't hesitate, and don't beat yourself up for waiting as long, perhaps as well, because sometimes it can even kind of hold back, and it can hold you back, from actually doing it. I say, look, if you've got an idea, you've got something you want to do, freaking do it, get out there. There's no time like the present, right? I wish I actually decided to direct and try my hand at directing years ago, rather than thinking, oh no, other people are better than this at me. When I first started getting inklings that I often worked well with actors, it was probably only on my second or third project that I produced as a short, realizing I got on better with them than I sometimes did with the crew or other people that I was in development with. And I'm like, why didn't I do this? And then on a horror film I did called Entity, which I made in, I think it was 2012, 2013, with a director called Steve Stone. Steve says to me about halfway through prep, and maybe it was on the first week of the shoot, I don't know. And he says to me, you're really a director, you know that, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm a director. Because no, you act like a director. You get on with the actors. You understand dialogue. You understand nuance. You understand, story. And he's like, that's great for a producer. Great, you got the practical ability, but you really are a budding director. I can't see you, not doing that. So I was like, but look at it. 12 years later, I'm sitting there telling you this. So why did I wait so long?
Ed, time was right. Time was just right. But I want to talk to you about, the community you've built there in Sheffield. Talk to me about the Filmmakers Network that you started.
Yeah. Okay, a lot to say about it, but I'll keep it brief. I'll try. I know I've been waxing poetic.
Hey, man, this is YouTube. You can go on as long as you want. As long as
people are interested. The South Yorkshire Filmmakers Network, largest network outside of London now for filmmakers. So many years ago, 21 years ago, it was a spin-off from the production company that I started with my ex-business partner, Ed Cartledge, who ran Sort of Films. Sort of Films existed on its own at first. Then he asked me to come on board, turn it into a limited company. I became a co-director of that company. We realized partway through that we were kind of running two different businesses. One was a production company, one was a network, because we like to do public things and have events and, have people come together and meet and have competitions and screenings and you name it, training. And I was like, that really is its own business. It really is its own business. Ed and I both kind of started realizing that what we were doing was running two different things. So I decided, all right, you know what? Maybe I can take on the network part and establish that as its own company, while the other production company could continue, running as well. So I stayed on both companies for maybe another year and a bit, maybe almost 2 years or something, I think. And then I resigned as director of Sort of Films, the company. And the SYFN continued. Ed then stayed on for a while, then eventually resigned as director of the network because he was getting too busy as well with his production company. So I took on the network and it became my full-time thing, which also evolved and morphed into its own little production company too, because we make films as well as, promote them and help people make things. We run networking events once a month. We have screenings once a month. We have occasional other events too in other cities or other towns or other sort of like one-off things. That we have a summer barbecue, for example, this month. That's in addition to our normal stuff. But we're there in the office. We have equipment hire at an affordable rate. We just try and promote and enable filmmaking to make it not seem as, as much of a mountain to climb as maybe it seems to a lot of people that are just starting out. So like you say before, Mike, about, starting off when you're late, a lot of people, when you're older, a lot of people say, I can't, it's too much to do. Look at all that. Well, if you come to an organization like ourselves, we make that path a lot more straight for you,
So, like I say at the end of all my films, I always say film is about community. And I want to ask you, you started up the film group, with the South Yorkshire Filmmakers Network. I want to know, you're the perfect person to ask. What does Film is About Community mean to you?
Well, it's very rare that you just make a film alone. You know, I mean, you can, but it's so much better when you make it with other people and collaborate. Film is a wonderful pathway to collaboration. It is a medium that is meant for collaboration. And, you know, working together and, you know, synergizing things, whether it's with a musician or an animator or other people that also share your vision, actors, you know, other talent. It's very rare that you do this yourself. But when you get other people that share your vision, understand your story and what you're coming, you know, from, where you're coming from, what you're trying to do, what your mission is, how you know, how powerful is that? How great is that when you can work with other people? And it's empowering, you know, it makes you feel good. And it's, you know, it's a wonderful experience when you can all bring something together. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all like parts of a big machine that come together. But to cheat a little bit on the second part of my answer to that question, because we were talking before the camera was rolling, and that was about how people also share this experience in a dark cinema. And that's how film was immediately and was initially meant to be consumed and conceived. And I think that shared experience is also, you know, fantastically valuable. There used to be one of those adverts that told you not to record films with your phones and stuff, and that's illegal. And don't put it online. Don't do that's illegal. Blah blah. But the point of that was not just the legal thing. It was also, hey, realize it's the experience that counts when you're in the cinema experiencing thing. You take it, you record it on your phone, stick it on the internet. That experience is gone, you know, on a new film. So why do that? You know, don't ruin it for people. Get them to encourage people to experience it that way.
1,000%. I agree with you 1,000%. But just as an aside, did you see F1, the new movie that came out, the Brad Pitt one?
I have not yet. I have not. It's only been out a week in the UK here. I haven't seen it yet, but a bunch of my friends and colleagues are saying it's brilliant.
It's one of those films where, I mean, story-wise, it's ankle deep. There's nothing to the story. But seeing it in the theater, seeing it with people, seeing it with the surround sound on the big screen is why we make these things. It's why we do these. F1 is not a film to be watched on your phone while you're on the train. Absolutely not. So if you get a chance, go see it in the theater. Go see it with people. It's amazing. Yeah. So let's talk.
Yeah, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I? Yeah. Experience-wise, I'll say, like, when I don't know if I was with you. I could have been with you, Mike, when we did this. But I remember there's two experiences. One was seeing Return of the Jedi, right, when it was in the cinema.
Yeah.
And how people cheered when the skiff explodes and Jabba the Hutt's palace, you know, when and people, and you see them, you see Luke and everybody, Han, etc., you know, flying away from the exploding skiff. That was amazing, and everybody's cheering and stuff like that, you know. And the other one was seeing the Doors. The Val Kilmer Doors.
Interesting.
God
okay.
rest, you know, and see, you might have been there. I think we might have seen that with ex-girlfriends and stuff in the cinema in Lynbrook.
Maybe.
And so the Doors were, and I just remember everybody was high. Because the experience that counts. You know, it's basically you walk in the cinema, it's like there's kind of blue smoke.
Yeah.
Inside the cinema, and you walk up and, well, this is going to be an interesting experience. And so, I mean, just tell you what, you're not going to do that, you know, with a lot of people at home.
You know, on my channel, I did this video because Minecraft came out a couple months ago, and all the rage. My kids went to go see it. They were all throwing popcorn. My kids weren't throwing popcorn. I told them not to, but the kids were going crazy when they say chicken jockey. And my kids came home, and I said to them, you know, the Rocky Horror Picture Show was a thing. Like this isn't. You're not the first generation to do this. Like we reacted to film also, and so that's one of the reasons I wanted to do the YouTube channel. Was my kids are experiencing film the way we did when we were in high school and college, and I want them to know that what they're seeing has cultural references, and we lived it. You know, like I got to watch Say Anything with my kids the other night, and it was amazing because they're all coming of age, and they're like, you know, graduating high school and college, and it was just a great moment, and I got to relive it with them too, watching it in their time, and just movies like that I think can bring generations together. I think it's a really awesome thing. So
completely, those are touchstone films, and yeah, you know, I mean, when my son first watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, he told me it was the scariest film he'd ever seen.
Wow.
And this is a kid that actually likes horror, and I'm like, you are brilliant. Yeah. And he's like, maybe he was probably about 9 years old at the time or something like that. And he says, Dad, that's like the scariest thing ever because it makes you think too hard. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're absolutely right, man.
It's working.
And well done for being that perceptive. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, poor Tom has been getting amazing accolades. Can you tell us about some of the awards? I mean, every time I see you on Facebook, you're posting with another award in your hand. I mean, it's been crazy, right?
Am I? Right. I don't know. I mean, it's won 30. It's got 30 now, and I said once it reached 30, I'd like to put it online. So I am going to be doing that. I've got in my diary to put it online on Friday. I got to hear from another festival that's happening over in Tacoma, Washington, called Zion. That festival ends tomorrow. So when I find out about that and what happens, then I think the sluices are open and I can put it, properly on YouTube or wherever. So, it's done all right. As I said, it kind of swept the board at a lot of these religious themed festivals, did very well there. And then, also did okay at a couple of other festivals too. Nothing huge. Oh my God, like I didn't, get like, when a lion at Cannes or something. But, it's been doing well. I think it's respectable. And I'm proud of it. So I'm just looking to, use it as leverage for the next one.
Great. Rob, when you get that link online, please let me know. I'd like to share it with our people at home. I know they'll enjoy it just as much as I did. Rob Speranza, thank you for joining me here today. And congrats on the film. Great work. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. My conversation with writer, producer, director, and good friend of mine, Rob Speranza. I really hope you like this kind of content because I've got a couple more up my sleeve and I'm hoping to get more of these kinds of interviews your way as soon as possible. As always, film is about community. I'm Mike, and I love movies.